Further afield, heads of state and government will convene virtually at the United Nations in New York to consider a menu of policy options to support member states in responding and recovering from the current coronavirus pandemic and the socio-economic impact it has wrought. The event, convened by the Secretary-General and the Prime Ministers of Jamaica and Canada, is a follow-up to a meeting held in May with interventions expected from global leaders, including President Cyril Ramaphosa and the leadership of international financial institutions. Sherwin Bryce-Pease has that story.
The pandemic is expected to drive up to 100 million people into extreme poverty, the first such increase since 1998. And with around 400 million jobs lost in the second quarter of 2020 alone, the urgency is real.
It's the financial support that is needed to fill these fiscal gaps that are coming as a result of the stimulus packages that have to be in place. We've seen considerable amounts of resources to stimulus packages, over 11 trillion, but very little of that has actually gone to developing countries. And so as we come on the 29th to meet, it is off the back of the meetings that we had in May with heads of state and government, where the SG was calling for that response.
The event seeks to specifically address financing for development in the era of COVID and beyond, and will focus on 6 areas: external finance and remittances, jobs and inclusive growth, recovering better for sustainability, global liquidity and financial stability, debt vulnerability, private sector engagement, and illicit financial flows.
Combating illicit flows, the numbers are quite considerable, including tackling many of the tax issues, but also bolstering transparency and having that exchange of data across every constituency. Finally, in the just transition is remembering that we can profit from COVID by ensuring the responses we have in the stimulus packages actually underscore a just transition, a transition that looks at better equality, greener jobs, moving informal sector through technology into the formal sector, and trying to support aligning the national and local budgets with the Sustainable Development Goals and the Paris Agreement.
The meeting, hoping to mobilize action and feed into the high-level annual meetings of the World Bank and International Monetary Fund in October and the G20 Leaders Summit in November.
The crisis will become bigger if we don't make those investments now. And I think you'll get very clear numbers and implications to that tomorrow. And when that happens, then where does the burden fall? It falls on women, it falls on youth. What does that in turn? No hope. Then we begin to see young people and much more instability in many countries without that hope. What gives me hope is that we're actually seeing some movement on this. In both cases, on the financing for development, there are clear indications there that the extension of the DSSI is already beyond the year that was indicated in the beginning. Not enough, perhaps into next year. We would like to see it to the end. And that also on the vaccine, as I said, the traction, more people coming into the COVAX facility, beginning to engage on the funding gap that is going to be required for that.
Of the $11 trillion global fiscal response that has been implemented to date, 88% has been disbursed by high-income countries, while just 2.5% by emerging and developing economies. Sherwin Bryce-Pease, SABC News, New York.